Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 131. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad to be back with you guys for this. When's this episode going up, Dave? Tuesday? How are we doing this? This is Inside Baseball, recording this here Monday night, but this will go up, I guess, Tuesday still?
Yeah, Tuesday, yeah.
All right, good deal. So, yeah, recording this Monday night, so if any news happens to come out Tuesday morning, we were not able to catch it, but wanted to do kind of a late night podcast here because tomorrow could be busy just with news of the day. And then also, of course, the real reason why we're doing this podcast here tonight, the Steelers have reportedly, and probably tomorrow, Tuesday, at least officially, will have signed veteran outside linebacker Melvin Ingram to a one-year deal worth $4 million, according to Jason La Canfora. So, Dave, I think we're definitely in agreement in terms of whether or not this was a good move. I think maybe there's a bit of a disagreement on what Ingram's role exactly is going to be, but starting with the player himself and the signing itself, I think a very good and a very necessary one for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, so that means no more terrible takes or posts about how the Steelers need to add depth and to the outside linebacker room, right? I mean, we've been nonstop, I think, pretty much on that. I mean, going back most of the offseason there. In fact, I went back and pulled up my initial 53-man roster prediction back in May, right after the draft. And I'm obviously due for another one of those here pretty soon. I purposely have been putting off version 2.0, thinking that maybe something like this would happen here, because in that first one I put in there, I put in obviously the four outside linebackers, Watt, Highsmith, Cassius Marsh, and Quincy Roche, and I put free agent as the fifth one there. And I said the only shot I'm going to call here is that Kevin Colbert just absolutely cannot go into the season with just those four. And I don't think the fifth one was. And I wrote in there, I said I don't believe the fifth one is currently under contract with the team. You and I have talked quite a bit how we thought that this team needed to add a veteran outside linebacker or an experienced outside linebacker of some sorts there. They absolutely, in my opinion, had to. There was no way whatsoever they could go into the season with Cassius Marsh and Quincy Roche being the backups there to Watt and Highsmith. And they did it. They absolutely did. And not necessarily the name that I think that I would have, thrown the dart exactly at in Melvin Ingram. In fact, man, you want to talk about breaking a trend. This is a huge broken trend by Kevin Colbert. In fact, this is the broken trend of all broken trends, maybe, when it comes to Kevin Colbert. Am I correct? The old outside of the organization, defensive free agent, over the age of 30 for more than a minimum. And I know that's a mouthful, and I know that's kind of a cherry-picked kind of qualifier in there. But, I mean, it is pretty significant when you go back over time. Look, I mean, the team re-signed James Harrison over the age of 30 in the past. Willie Williams, many years ago, over the age of 30, had already played for the organization once before. But not generally, dating back to as long as Kevin Colbert has been in Pittsburgh, you have just not really seen past this time of the offseason, well, really any time of the offseason, I don't reckon, a defensive player over the age of 30 that was an outside free agent signed for more than a minimum salary. And, assuming that Jason La Canfora's story is right about the $4 million, and there's no reason to think that it's wrong, huge trend buster. This is almost, this is the equivalent, of Kevin Colbert going all in to some degree, here. Once again, I'm not sure I would have chose Melvin Ingram as my choice just because of the trend alone. However, there's nothing wrong with this move whatsoever. And even though it is probably like $1.5 million more than I thought would be the price on it, I think you'll be hard pressed to find reasons why this was a bad move.
Agreed. And this is the first such signing, 30-plus defensive player outside free agent since Mike Jones. Is that the trivia question answer?
Yes.
I believe. And when was Jones? 2000. Wasn't that the first year Corporal got here?
Way back, yeah.
Yeah. So that is a trend. And there were some signs that they were going to buck that because they had the interest in Ryan Kerrigan, who's, I think he's 34, and Ingram's now 32. So, an exception to be made, but I think the right exception to make here. Because we talked about it all offseason, as you said, Dave. They just absolutely could not go into the offseason, or into week one, I should say, with the guys they had, unless somebody just blows up and just has an amazing, camp and preseason at Roche, a Marsh, somebody else. But the odds of that aren't terribly high. And so now you're getting really good at best or at worst, however you want to qualify it, a really strong backup rotational guy. And let's talk about Ingram, the player. And he's 32, missed, I think, 9 games last year with some knee injuries, didn't have a sack. But you watch the tape. I know we've all kind of done a good amount of tape study on him already since the signing. There's still some good tape out there with him. Like, he still feels like he can play. It doesn't feel like he's shot. The legs are still there. I think the burst is okay. The hand use was impressive. And I think he's a really strong scheme fit in terms of him moving around the front, being effective on twists and games and stunts, and just being a versatile piece who can play left or right side, even dropping the coverage. So I think he's a good player still and a strong scheme fit for the Steelers defense.
Yeah, the knee injury, he injured that, I think, kind of late, and I sent that over to Dr. Mel, who I think is going to have a post on that on the health of Ingram, likely to go up on the site, I would think tomorrow, if not the next day there. Injured that knee in week 2 against the Chiefs late in that game. That ultimately landed him on IR for the specified amount of time. He came back from IR and right out of shoot, man. He I think what do you have? I think eight pressures against Jacksonville. I think that was his first game back or his second game back. Really looked effective in that game, and really 28, I think, pressures overall in just 7 games, and 300 and how many steps did he play? 330 or 360, something like that in total. Now, he re-injured that knee, what was it, week 12 or 13, right around in there, and that landed
11 against the Jets.
Week 11 against the Jets, and that landed him back on IR in week 12, and then obviously second trip to IR, had to miss the rest of the season. I haven't found whether or not he needed surgery. I don't know if I don't know if we can confirm whether or not he had that injury was serious enough to require surgery. Maybe Dr. Mel will do a little bit deeper dive into that and find out for sure. I couldn't find anything on that whatsoever there. Maybe it's just, I don't know, sprained MCL or ACL. I don't know. But it did cost him the rest of his season there. The statistics are not there outside of the pressures, really. I mean, I think he had, 10 total tackles in there, no sacks, obviously. But as you indicated, if you didn't know the stats and you were just kind of just cruising through some tape on him, you'd say, man, it looks good from a pass rush standpoint there. You hit on it. The hand usage was there. I think you see some good instances both against interior guards and tackles of him using that bull rush and using speed to power. Especially there's a snap, I think, midway through the game against the Jaguars. Who is that left tackle over there last year? Was that
Cam Robinson?
Yeah, was it Cam Robinson over there? Put him on skates in that one. I think you can find, go, and that wasn't the only instance. That was the one that just stuck out in my head. But
there's another in that Jacksonville game against the backup right guard. He ran over too on third down.
All right, and I know there's some other instances outside that Jaguars game that I watched of him getting in, using some speed to power with a guard. The other thing you hit on, he moved all around in that defense. So really, that wasn't new to him. He's done that a lot during his career with the Chargers, playing on his feet, kind of amoeba, kind of walking around sometimes in the middle of the defense. He plays on his feet, has played on his feet extensively during his career. I think 2019, if you're worried about sides, I think it was pretty damn close to an even split as far as pass rushes from the left to right side there. So that's not an issue there. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at his run defense. That's one aspect that I want to dive a little bit deeper into the tape. Obviously,
Yeah, me too.
300 something snaps. I immediately went for the pass rushing snaps, and I suppose you did as well too there. But I think just in general, as you said, you turn on the tape and just knowing the stats that he didn't compile last year, but you look at the tape, the skill set, he still has that aspect of it. Now, can he stay healthy? That's obvious. He was obviously unsigned for a reason. 32 years of age, coming off of a knee injury, a non-productive raw statistical year there. But I mean, you can also see why he probably got $3 or $4 million from the Steelers on top of it because of how he was able to pass rush and all on top of it there. So if this guy can stay healthy and they can formulate some sort of a good rotation where, I don't know, 500 snaps out of him and get that 500 snaps, I don't see how you find fault with the move, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and there was a market for him, the Chiefs and the Dolphins. I think he had actual visits with both of those teams. So it wasn't even a Trey Turner situation where the Steelers were his first visit, and it seemed like the market was really light for a guy like him, and that made him really cheap to be your starting right guard. Ingram's getting paid more to be backup / rotational guy than Trey Turner's getting to be, presumably at least, the Steelers' starting right guard. So yeah, the question now becomes exactly what that role is going to be. I still believe Alex Highsmith is going to be your starter when I take that first snap week 1 against the Bills. It is more money than I thought. I thought Ingram would get that $2 to $3 million. I think Kerrigan got 2.5, so I figured it'd be around that same number. Ingram would, but again, that market might have pushed him up a little bit, and you just needed to have good depth at the minimum behind Highsmith and Watt in case Highsmith doesn't take the jump or there's an injury, as his team found out last year with Bud Dupree. The backup got called upon to play almost 500 snaps last season. So I still think Highsmith's going to be the starter because, he's probably been the guy they envisioned to replace Dupree the moment they drafted Highsmith in 2020. And I don't think that plan's going to change yet. But if Highsmith does struggle and doesn't have a great start first month of the season, then I could easily see Ingram really start chipping into those snaps as you go along into the year. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
$4 million is a lot to pay a backup for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, but it's very quality insurance. Even as a backup, he would still play 15 to 25 snaps per game. So we're still talking between 350 and 450 snaps a season, even just on that alone.
I think, if you want to look at it just from an official posterity standpoint, I guess, yeah, there probably still is a good bet that the first defensive snap of 2021 that Alex Highsmith's out there for it. However, you're not paying that guy $4 million to play just 10 to 15 snaps a game, which I kind of envisioned a guy that they might sign as kind of playing. I think now you're into that 15 to 25 snap range there. So here, I'll tell you this, he's more likely to eat into more of Alex Highsmith's snaps than he is one TJ Watt's, because TJ Watt, even though you need to make it a priority, I think you try to get him off the field at times, he's not going to want to come off the field most of the time there. So, tomato, starter, backup, I don't know how you want to frame this. I don't think it matters really, because Ingram's going to play a higher number of snaps than what I envisioned the guy that they were going to bring in, whoever it was, to help kind of fill in as the number 3 there, kind of 10 to 15 snaps. Ingram's obviously experienced enough that you should be able to get him on the field right out of shoot. I think the plus on this too is, look, now, and not saying that Alex Highsmith was just going to skate on to week 1, blah blah blah. The kid's obviously a hard worker, like him, a lot of upside. It's no reason why the Steelers, why he's been penciled in to be the starter, but now at least you have a little fire underneath him, right? And you can, and don't doubt that Mike Tomlin not going to use something like that as well too. This just has somebody pushing up from behind on one Alex Highsmith, and as I wrote in my post this evening as well too. Look, you get another tutor in there too, and that's not a bad thing. You lost a tutor during the offseason in Bud Dupree. We've heard Alex Highsmith talk very, very a lot of praise about the way Watt and Dupree helped him last year. Obviously, to what degree each one did, we don't know. But Dupree's gone now. At least you get another guy with experience in there, and I'm sure that Ingram's a good enough teammate where he would help the youngster on top of it. So you bought yourself another tutor on top of it, which I think is definitely a plus there. And once again, you're pushing up from the bottom on Highsmith, and for some reason, if he doesn't have a great summer or preseason or what have you, then at least you have a guy that you can turn to and kind of baby Highsmith along maybe for a little bit. Or as you said, if maybe you start the season here and Highsmith struggles, whether it be against the run or as a pass rusher, it gives you a guy you can turn to a little bit there. So more than anything, does it really matter who starts opposite TJ Watt? I say no, because I think Ingram at $4 million is going to get enough snaps and it's going to eat into a little bit of Highsmith over on that side.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of personal knowledge to this, but the stuff I've read says that Ingram's a really good locker room guy, good leader, and those kind of things. So that'll be important for the reasons you mentioned, being a tutor and just that veteran presence in that room alongside a TJ Watt. I mean, when you say it doesn't matter, it makes me sound like you think it's a 50-50 split, where starter backup doesn't matter because they're playing about the same number of snaps.
I think you could see that depending on the game, depending on the situation. I envision Ingram playing around 450 to 500 snaps, to be honest with you.
So that would put him at, if he plays 17 games, which is roll the dice.
Now, obviously, all those aren't going to be on the right side, on Highsmith's side. I mean, sure. But look, you can also do other things here too. You can get because Ingram has played both sides, because Highsmith technically has gotten snaps, I think, on a little bit on the other side as well too. You can move those guys around a little bit when Watt's not in there on top of it there too. So
and remember, they used some 3 outside linebacker packages last year as well. Some off-ball stuff where the third guy's playing off-ball. So, and Devin Bush is coming back, so that may complicate things. You got a lot of talent on the inside, and of course you got your interior guys, Hayward, Tuitt, etc. But yeah, like you said, there are a lot of options here.
I mean, I envision around 500 snaps for Ingram. Now, divide them up however you want to divide them up there. Now, I think obviously the likelihood. Look, you're not throwing Highsmith out with the bathwater here. He's still going to be your future and all like that. But maybe they want him to develop a little bit more, especially against the run. I mean, we've got to see this guy play better against the run. Agreed?
Sure, I think that's fair.
Okay.
I mean, he's got to play better just overall.
Right.
I mean, in every facet, he's got to play better.
Right. But, I mean, especially against, he definitely showed some good things. We talked already about his pass rush and how it developed throughout the season, and the moves and the counters and all that. I mean, he just needs to become a more well-rounded, pass rusher. We just see a little bit more of that speed to power. And look, I mean, maybe you have some situations there where you you play some tackles that, more susceptible to speed to power, and that isn't Highsmith's game, right? We talked about that earlier in the offseason. Whereas Ingram, I think there's enough on tape over the years that shows that Ingram can use that long arm and good with his hands and can do that bull rush. He likes that, and he likes that inside spin too. I noticed too. Very underrated with him. Fantastic, and I think you did a good post Monday night on the twist and the stunts and all like that. Not only is he a good twister and a good looper, he's a good crasher. He's a very team-oriented crasher that's not afraid to take two so the other guy gets home. Type thing, and that's going to really please a guy like Cameron Hayward if he's on that side and Stephon Tuitt on the other side there. And look, sometimes they've used Tyson Alu in the middle to kind of be the crasher as well on that, so it gives them another option. I think not only is he good at being the looper on the stunts, but I saw some instances of him crashing and taking two with him as well.
Yeah, I thought Hayward and Dupree last year were probably one of the best duos in terms of running those games and stunts. And actually, my terrible take on Monday, which I recorded even before we knew Ingram was coming in for a visit, I joked that Dupree owes Hayward some of that Titans money for freeing him up on some of those stunts. But Ingram can make it work as well as the crasher. So God forbid if T.J. Watt got hurt, was out for some time. I think you could manufacture some pressure with stunts in games and an increase in blitz with Ingram and the rest of the defense in terms of creating some of that pressure without just straight up rushing with those games and twists and things like that. So I think Ingram does that very well. I guess that's why I think he's a strong scheme fit for the Steelers defense. When it goes back to Alex Highsmith, I mean, again, I think Ingram's definitely going to play. And, if Highsmith does not perform, then they definitely is going to eat into those snaps, no question about it. But, I mean, they've went this entire offseason without addressing the position, not through free agency and the main part of free agency, not through the draft. So that seemed to signal they had the intent and the plan and the confidence was in Highsmith that he could be that guy. And then Ingram ends up signing. And, I don't want to say that's going to change the equation too much because we almost went in the camp with Highsmith being, the clear-cut guy. And so if there was that much concern about or desire to have Highsmith, slow play it a little bit, they would have made a move earlier in all likelihood to give them some options before today.
And look, I would think it's slam dunk the other way, except for the fact that $4 million is $4 million, and that's right. A little bit more than I envisioned there.
Right, but again, market probably drove his price up a little bit. You got multiple teams competing for him, and I mean, I know you could still sign some guys, and they could, but it's not like you don't have a lot of moves left to make, so you can kind of splurge a little bit on this signing because the end of the offseason is here.
Yeah, but I mean, Kevin Colbert still likes to save the money when he can save the money.
Right, but usually doesn't sign 32-year-old outside linebackers, so
yeah,
it's a lot of rule breaking here. So I mean, I get it. Yeah, it is more than I thought. It'd be about $2 to $3 million. So 4 was higher, and we'll have to see. I mean, I doubt there's incentives or something like that, but we'll always have to kind of wait and see on the details of the contract. But it's interesting for sure. But regardless of what the role is, quality depth signing, a quality signing overall, one they needed to make. And I wasn't sure how. I knew they were going to bring in another edge rusher at some point. I didn't know who or what avenue it would be. Didn't think it would be Melvin Ingram, but pleasantly surprised by this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we talked about it all offseason, and it finally got done. There was no, I explicitly wrote and said a few times, there's no way Kevin Colbert can go into the 2021 season with the way that depth chart was there. And I didn't know if there was going to be, trade for Chase Winovich or wait till final cut downs and see if, one of them 28-year-old Ben Banagoo got waived or something along those lines. Look, here's the thing. You could still potentially add a guy like that too. There's nothing that says you don't. And because let's face it, we don't know if they're going to keep 4 or 5 outside linebackers still. What this does is it definitely puts a lot more pressure on guys like Cassius Marsh and Quincy Roche to really shine on special teams because both those guys, neither one of those guys are locks right now. And yes, I know it's a strong possibility they still keep 5 overall, a very strong possibility. And obviously, if that's the case, then probably Marsh and Roche both make it. But even so, it's not a slam dunk now.
Yeah, no, it's not. Those guys are going to have to be fighting really hard just for roster spots. The other thing to consider with Highsmith or with Ingram is I very much doubt he'll play on special teams. So there'll still be an opening there for Marsh, for Roche, for somebody else to grab that opportunity, because Ingram at 32, I don't think he's really done it before much in his career, is not going to be running down kicks and punts for you.
Oh, so no, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I'd be shocked.
Right. So it's kind of a bit of a James Harrison situation back in 2016, 2017 of him being a number 3, because typically that guy's going to play a lot of special team snaps. But for Ingram, that's very much doubtful to happen.
Right.
He played 5 in 2020. Granted, 7 games.
1 or 2 last year, wasn't it? Not many last year.
Yeah, well, that's what 2020. I was saying 5. Yeah, and then he played 12 the year before in 2019. Played 13 games. Final thing to consider is just, again, as you said, health. I mean, Ingram's he's missed 12 games the last 2 years. So my goal for the former Chargers, Trey Turner, Melvin Ingram, is to play 30 games combined this season. If you do that, I'll be happy. But again, can you expect both of those guys to play 17 games? Recent history says probably not going to happen.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed. Look, I mean, both those guys are going to be, week 11 against the Chargers out in L.A.? Is that what it is? It's
not sure.
But anyway, they get a chance to play their former team, at the Chargers out in L.A. during the regular season. I just wrote that up today. I don't wonder why I can't remember that.
I know it's in L.A. because they're always
specifically week 11, November 21st. That's a night game, primetime game on top of it there. So and once again, I don't know if he had to have surgery on that knee or not. We'll rely on Dr. Mel to give us the full update. I'm assuming we're going to get a doctor is in post here pretty soon from Dr. Mel, kind of recapping the health of Melvin Ingram. Now, he did have, I think, a surgery on one of those knees way back. Maybe was it his rookie season or second season?
Yeah, he tore his ACL.
Yeah, way back there. No, I don't think he's had. How many games has he missed since then?
He was really durable for a while, from 2015 to 2018. Didn't miss a game. 2019 missed 3, and then last year with that knee missed 9 games.
And then prior to that, he went something like 5 seasons in a row, I think, playing every game or something like that.
Yeah,
didn't he?
2015 to 2018 did not miss a game.
Okay, and once again, what version are you getting here? Are you getting? I mean, 2019 Melvin Ingram wouldn't be bad to have. 2018 I think would be even slightly, maybe a tad bit better. I don't think you're going to get 2017 or earlier version of Melvin Ingram there. Father Time being undefeated and all, but look, for what they needed and what they got, and just scheme. You look at what he did at the Chargers and how the Steelers like to scheme things up there. This is the kind of guy that they needed here. So if he blows 2 hubcaps going over the railroad tracks the first time, so be it. But this was a good risk to take. Once again, it was a little bit. I never envisioned it being 3. I thought maybe at most. I thought at most of the more I thought about it, I thought, this is going to be a contract just like Trey Turner's. 1 year, $3 million. That's as high as I got in my mind. So $4 million. That's a little pricier than what I thought it would be. But if they get 500 snaps out of him, if he stays healthy, and if he provides the kind of rotational need and some production on top of it, then it's fine. How would you rate just looking at it right now? How would you rate this trio as it stands right now versus the trio that they had right before Bud Dupree went down last season with the knee injury?
I mean, it's worse because Dupree's better than Highsmith right now and better than Ingram right now. But it's a lot better than it was yesterday. I'll put it that way.
Right.
I mean, they needed a guy like this. I think that's probably one of the best names they could have acquired, and it's not even a end of the preseason kind of move where a guy's jumping on that moving train, post camp, post preseason. So it'll be nice just to have this guy in the building throughout the summer. So it's not as strong as it was last year with Dupree, Watt, and Highsmith, but it's like I said, it's better than where it's been all offseason.
Right.
So happy with it. Just turn back the clock to 2019 for Trey Turner and Melvin Ingram, and things are okay.
Look, they had to have it. They had to get somebody else in there. And once again, you don't have to be. You don't have to be completely done at this point. Obviously, you're not going to spend any more high dollar or anything like that. But I mean, if one of these younger guys around the league gets cut that can help the bottom end of that depth chart and can play a little bit on special teams, you can still go that way.
Yeah, so give us the update cap-wise. We know $4 million, at least we assume $4 million is the number for Melvin Ingram. So how much cap space, A, does that take up? And then B, how much cap space does that leave the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I think effective net cap space is, let me pull up my notes here.
It's 3 point something.
Yeah, 3 point, hold on here. I'll find it here, effective cap space.
It's after displacement.
Well, the corresponding move for assuming the corresponding move for the signing of Melvin Ingram is a rookie salary player, $660,000. The Steelers now have $9.409106 in cap space, so a little over $9.4 million overall. And the effective cap space used was $3.34 million, if indeed the number is $4 million there. So effective cap space used after displacement, $3.34, and they have just a little more than $9.4 million in cap space available to them at this point. Now, there's obviously the team can still restructure the contracts of a few people if they want to. They likely will to it for sure. I think at this point, but we've said that all along, really at this point, or up until this point, that we thought that was going to get done. And they obviously can get Boswell done. There's $5 million still out there for them to gain via restructures if they want. And someone asked, tweeted at me, says, look, can they still do something here and maybe do something with say Malik Hooker? Yeah, I mean, if they want to, and it's under, say, about $3 million, they absolutely can still do something there. And whether or not they will, look, I think we both agree. Where are the holes in the depth chart now that they have a guy like Ingram under contract?
It's safety, and I still think they're going to try to bring somebody in. They've been trying most of the offseason. Carl Joseph, Hooker. I did sign Millette, but he's maybe slot, maybe a little bit of free safety. So they're going to add. I mean, I know Jesse James is still floating out there, but who knows if that'll happen. But in terms of like real needs, it's just safety depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd like to see them address it if they can. I don't know if it's going to be Malik Hooker or not, but I mean, it's there. It's there if they want it. And, he's still unsigned, so until he signs with somebody, I think that there's always a chance. And is it hard to imagine him going into the season right now with what they have at safety? I say yes.
I mean, they did it last year. They didn't really have much depth last season behind Minka and Edmonds, so it's possible. But the way they've been kind of acting with, the undrafted free agent signings and the visits of Joseph and Hooker, it feels like they know they want to at least try to address it. So I think somebody comes in at some point in some form or fashion.
This goes back to the whole thing. Look, the cap can be massaged and massaged. Look how much massaging is going on. This off season and
releasing the cash for help, though, that did clear space.
Yeah, we but it still got done.
Yeah,
you never thought the path that you ended up getting here that included Nelson and DeCastro being terminated. Nobody predicted that, but yet here we are. So, you might as well spend it. Especially with as big a holes as you have at outside linebacker and safety. I feel pretty confident they're going to do something. I don't know what, but I think you have to get another safety in the door, and especially one that can play center field. Would you agree?
Yeah, that'd be ideal. And I think Malik Hooker's a good candidate for that. But yeah, you make the cap work because you have no choice. You got to do it. You got to be compliant. And the Steelers will be, and we'll see where they go from here. But yeah, I don't think they're necessarily done with adding to the roster yet.
When you look at $9.4 million and you look at $7 million of that's already, I mean, it's already spoken for. So you're going to have to do the restructure unless you're going to find a way to get TJ Watt done and lower his cap number, which I will be absolutely pretty surprised if they're able to do that. I think the best case scenario is what we laid out the other day. You get his deal done and his cap number doesn't move, and if that's the case, you're still going to at a minimum have to restructure the contract to Stephon Tuitt. And it's only what you might as well go ahead and do Boswell while you're at it, just in case you need the cap room. So I would suspect, and that give you $5 million more, and why not get that done in the next couple of weeks here on top of it. You're going to have probably a little bit of attrition where maybe you clear, I don't know, $1.5 million, $2 million because a rookie makes the roster over, one of those, second or third season guys there. Saves you a little bit of money that way. So I suspect that will happen and all that way. So, we still got a few days to go before the start of training camp. So we'll see if this team adds a safety here at some point. And I think they have to be honest with you, Alex. For me to feel comfortable, I think they have to.
I'd like them to. I feel like they will. But again, last couple seasons, they've gone in with not a lot of depth at the position. So we'll see. What is the current number of effective cap space not really spoken for? How much do they have right now?
Let's see. In other words, do you want me to count? Well, let's see here. Let me see if this updated correctly here. I think it possibly did. Let's see, $9.409 million is where they stand right now. I think they have, let's see. Let me make sure if all those are adding up here. It looks like projected effective usable salary cap space as we speak right now, if my numbers are right, are $1.177396. So almost $1.2 million in the hole. Okay, if that makes sense. So they've overspent by almost $1.2 million in cap space when you look at, they still have to sign Kendrick Green, they still have to sign a practice squad, they still have to sign a 52nd and 53rd player, and we're going to assume that they're going to need $7 million freed up at the start of the season for in-season use. If all that's correct, then 1.2 in the hole. Now, if you look at another $5 million out there with Tuitt and Boswell, then they effectively have $3.832604 in a potential effective usable salary cap space. Say that real fast.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There. So, that's basically what I'm telling you there is then they have $3.8 million to kind of play with.
Right, which is enough to sign easily a Malik Hooker or somebody else.
Sure, you could go get a Malik Hooker at $3 million, if you wanted to. I wouldn't think it'd be much more than that, but they just spent $4 million on Melvin Ingram, right? I wouldn't think Malik Hooker would cost you that. I could see Malik Hooker maybe going as high as, I don't know. Man, $3 million sure seems strong for Malik Hooker.
Yeah. 1.75 to 2.
Yeah, that feels a lot better. Now, obviously, he's not going to want to sign for the minimum. That goes without saying, obviously. But they, if they plan on doing Tuitt and Boswell, which we've said all along that was probably going to be what happens, they still have a little bit of cap space that they can spend here on a guy like. On a safety period.
Yeah,
and a tight end too. They, another kind of relatively cheap tight end if they like to be the number 3 is out there. They could probably do something there as well too, and obviously displacement and all that comes into it there. So, long story short, if whatever's out there, if they want it, they could probably go get it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, don't think they're done yet, but they're making a lot of moves. A lot of later summer, right before camp type of moves here with Trey Turner, Melvin Ingram, and it's interesting because we see this kind of stuff in camp and things like that. It's like Banner, Ray McLeod, but not to these names, not to this degree. So it's been a very kind of nonstop, interesting offseason.
And look, I think we both agree, right? I mean, they have got to make sure this defense is screwed down tight. And even with the addition of Ingram, and let's say they add a guy like Hooker, or somebody with some free safety experience, it's still probably not going, or at least I don't envision it being as good a defense as it was last season. Now you get a lot closer to that, I think, by adding the proper depth and all, on top of it there. So. They have, if they want any chance at all to compete, not only for the AFC North, but to maybe make some waves in the playoffs. This defense has got to have the screws tightened down on it. And props to Kevin Colbert for taking the first step in that, on Monday night or Monday afternoon, but in signing a guy like Melvin Ingram there. So, once again. I don't see how, unless somebody just wants to get up in arms over $4 million versus, I don't know, $2.5 million. That's the only way I think you can take any issue with the signing of Ingram.
Yeah, and I wouldn't get too fussy about $1.5 million difference with how important it is to have a guy like Ingram for his role, his potential in that, potential insurance behind an injury. Let's say Highsmith or Watt goes down, misses 5 games like Dupree did last year. I mean, that you're gonna be thankful to pay that extra $1.5 million to have a guy like Melvin Ingram on your team.
Right, and like I said, even if Ingram blows 2 hubcaps and go over the railroad tracks the first time, it was still a risk that needed to be taken. I think when it came to him.
Yeah, and Ingram told Josina Anderson what kind of sealed the deal for Pittsburgh was a chance to win, of course, but also Mike Tomlin said he really has a good connection with Tomlin and felt like it was going to be a good home for him. So Tomlin would be a heck of a college coach. Like he'd just be the
machine, can you imagine?
Yeah, if he ever wants to, if the Steelers ever dump him, go into college and just get paid $10 million and be an awesome recruiter. But that's what Ingram said, and so now he is your latest Pittsburgh Steeler just a couple days before training camp, but he's in there right before the team reports.
Absolutely. We never know what we're going to wake up to, do we?
Because I had gone to the Pirates game on Sunday, so I didn't even see the report of Ingram coming in until like an hour after you posted.
Did you put your phone down?
Yeah, I did. I had my phone on. I just wanted to watch the Pirates blow a 6-run lead. I was really engaged.
How did that feel? How did that feel? What's that like?
I wish I was watching a winning performance, not a blown ninth inning game there from our beloved Pirates.
No, what does it feel like to put your phone down?
Oh yeah, you don't know what that feels like. I know. It's just like medically been stitched into your arm or something, right?
Mine's in my bed with me all the time too.
Yeah.
I know the dog doesn't like it, and I know my wife doesn't like it, but now I do turn off some of the alerts at certain hours, but. It does stay in the bed with me. It very rarely leaves my side.
Are you like me where I have this Pavlovian response where every time my phone buzzes or dings, I have to immediately look just to see if it's any Steelers news?
Yeah.
90% of the time it's not, but I still have to look.
I do that, yeah, and I even have the desktop open in front of me and I do it. So,
right.
And yeah, I am OCD when it comes to that thing, most definitely. Yeah.
I just hear the ding and I'm like a squirrel and just immediately turn my head. And that's probably an issue.
You turned it off the other day or no?
At the Pirates game, I just had my data off, so I wasn't burning the battery life on my phone and the data and all that. But
that would explain you ignoring my direct message that asked you, were you sitting behind home plate?
Yeah. Well, you saw the video. You knew where I was sitting.
Oh, I didn't know you were sitting there. You might have got up and moved.
I snuck in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a decent first pitch by Kevin Dawson. A little outside.
Yeah. How many rows up were you?
A couple. I don't know, 6, 7. I wasn't directly behind home plate.
Okay. Was there the first time you sat that close behind home plate?
First time. My last before I go into hibernation for the next 5 months. I figured I'd go outside one more time, see what that was like.
Yeah, I did a puzzle with my wife. Yeah, we took a break from the Steelers to do a puzzle of the Steelers.
Oh, really? What was the puzzle of?
I mean, I tweeted it out. I ain't done a puzzle in years either, man. Neither one. And the bad thing about it is, I don't know when the last time you did a puzzle was. You're looking down, and the older you get, the eyes are bad, so you have to really get on top of it, and you have to have the great lighting and all like that. Well, man, I got a hell of a damn crick in my damn neck because I'm not used to standing and looking down that amount of time there. So we still haven't finished it yet because I've been trying to I've been on IR.
You had a puzzle related injury?
I had a puzzle related injury. Yep.
How old are you?
I'm 53 going on 73. Really, basically, yeah. I mean, I got a body of a damn 73-year-old man. So but yeah, we took a break the other night. I took a break from the Steelers to spend time with wifey doing a Steelers puzzle. So
finish that puzzle.
I need to. Maybe in the next day or so we'll be able to do that. All right, where were we?
Sign in for agents, you won't get it done.
No, I won't.
Yeah. So wrapping up our thoughts on Melvin Ingram, the cap implications there. I think move on to some other Steelers news of the day. Two other pieces of news here to address. A minor one here: the Steelers preseason game, I believe it's their third preseason game, will be televised on NFL Network, so the national audience can watch that game against the Detroit Lions.
You think? How do you think they're going? Because there's that gap in between the preseason finale now. Again, I guess my question is does the Panthers game become what used to be the third preseason game? In other words, is the Panthers game going to be is the last preseason game going to be the tune-up game, or is the second to last game still going to be the tune-up game, and then all the Bobos dress, dress the final game against the Panthers? How do you foresee that going? Because I guess I'm asking because I wasn't sure how to kind of tease that up there. Might that televised game against the Lions be where we see Roethlisberger play the most snaps?
Could be. I don't know, especially if the Steelers having 4 preseason games, unlike everyone else except for Dallas. So I don't know how they're going to approach it. Because it's 2 weeks off after the final preseason game. That's generally, you usually had your tune-up game 2 weeks before, in past years, before the regular season began. So it'll be interesting. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they play that out. Now, here's the other thing that I guess to consider. They play the Lions during the regular season this year.
Right.
So
do you not play your starters?
Do you not tip nothing, in a meaningless preseason game that way, because you got to play that game again. So I'm not sure how that's going to go, quite honestly, and obviously with the extra week in there. I don't know. The more I kind of think about it, the more I envision them probably just using that final game as the tune-up game that way, and then getting the time off, and then going from there.
Yeah.
So.
I just try not to think about it, and just whatever happens, and we'll just cover it as it occurs.
At least we'll be able to watch that one without having to watch it on the Game Pass. So.
Yeah, well, I'll get to watch it here. I mean, I'm local.
Oh, okay, you get to watch it local. So I mean,
yeah, I'll be watching the CW, KDK, whatever channel they have it on these days with Pomp and Charlie Batch. Anyway, some other news. The pass log. I noticed this last night, and I think it's just happened because I checked the Steelers front office page almost on a daily basis because I'm that much of a nerd. But the Steelers no longer have Jay Whitmire listed on their front office roster. I looked up where Jay Whitmire was at, and he is now with the New York Jets. Now, you probably don't know who Jay Whitmire is, talking about Steeler fans as a group. He was a Steelers football analyst, one of their top analytical guys, replacing Kareem Kasem, who left to go to Duolingo, then the Twins, and then Jacksonville, and now he's on sabbatical. But basically, Whitmire, the head of their analytics department for the Steelers, now gone, which leads me to ask, is there an analytics department in Pittsburgh? It feels like, and I'm just outside of perspective here, it feels like these guys are coming to Pittsburgh realizing their talent isn't really as of use in Pittsburgh, and so they go somewhere else. I don't know that for a fact, obviously, but the Steelers aren't really known for their obsession and really interest in all things numbers. And so I feel like the guys that have that job kind of get that message.
Yeah, analytics department might be cutting film and getting coffee.
Yeah, analyze how many creamers.
Yeah, budget, analytics, wrong kind of analytics, budgeting the cost of things in front office expenditures and stuff like. Yeah, that I don't know what's going on there. Look, I mean, we're not shocked that the Steelers aren't heavy into analytics, right? I mean,
right. Not a.
We wish they were, but I mean they've gotten this far. I mean, but and how many guys have moved out of that department in the last 2 years?
Well, two of them, Kareem Kassim, who was their head guy, and now Jay Whitmire. They still have one guy listed as a football analyst, Tosin Kazim. He's got a bit of an analytical background, mechanical engineering, also was a scouting coordinator or scouting assistant in some capacity with the Tennessee Titans. He's kind of got a football and analytical background, so he's still there. But maybe they hire somebody else. No one listed yet on the Steelers page, so we'll keep our eye on that. But just interesting to note about the Steelers in analytics.
Might have him airing up some footballs.
Probably. So just wanted to pass that along because I'm always into the minutia, to use your word, of the Steelers front office. So
nerd.
Guilty. All right, Dave. Also had a quick interview, or not a quick interview, but a quick note on the interview I had with Steelers Director of Player Development, Darrell Young, hired to replace Terry Cousin. Talked to him last week. Interview went up. The article went up on Monday on Steelers Depot. Good reception. Thank you to everyone who read it. Really, really good guy. Really interesting guy. Connection there with Mike Tomlin, Danny Smith, that I think is hopefully worth the read.
What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I mean, it's just good to hear about what that job is because most people don't know what Director of Player Development exactly means. It's more of an off-the-field type thing. Basically, any sort of issue players will have off the field, finances, tickets, getting a feel for training camp, adjusting to the NFL, just anything like that. Any personal issues, Darrell Young's going to be the guy that they're going to work with, getting the rookies ready, those kind of things. So that's the job description. And then just the takeaway was he's a really good guy who's always been committed to serve and to lead and played in the NFL for a long time, so he has that experience he can share with guys as someone who's been a starter, someone who's been cut, kind of went through every emotion, he said, throughout his NFL career. So it just seems like a really good guy with good stories, and I tried to share as many of those as possible in the article.
He was a Villanova product, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. He was. He played actually linebacker and safety there, then came to Washington as a linebacker initially, but then Mike Shanahan told him, you ain't making it as a linebacker. We'll try you at fullback. That's your best shot. And he made it.
Huh. Yeah, good. A pretty decent special teams player, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was. And actually had 13 touchdowns in his career, so he had a little offensive ability as well. But good interview to check out on Steelers Depot.
All right. And how long has he been with the Steelers now?
May 3rd. Got hired.
Okay.
So just a couple of months. All right, Dave, let's continue our training camp preview. We did the quarterbacks and running backs and fullback on, Friday's show. Today we'll do the tight ends and wide receivers. What position would you like to start with, Dave, tight end or wide receiver?
Yeah, let's go tight end. And obviously it starts with a guy like Eric Ebron at the top. I think I want to see less of Eric Ebron blocking 4-3 base ends and more of Eric Ebron detached from the line of scrimmage and working up the seam, and also want to see less drops out of Eric Ebron, which might be asking a little bit too much. But those are I think the three biggest takeaways when you look at a guy like Eric Ebron at the top of the depth chart. Another glorified kind of wide receiver. Yes, there's going to be times where you attach him to the line of scrimmage, but I don't want to see him in key situations have to block a key defensive end. I'd rather have him blocking down, maybe on some outside zone, or washing out some helping block that way, other than just having to stand somebody up and off the line that way there. But want to see him down the seam more. Maybe some. You go back the lone play action under center touchdown that Ben Roethlisberger had in 2020 went to.
I'm going to take a guess here and say Eric Ebron.
Eric Ebron. That was a game against the Jaguars. And I think I think Derek Watt might have been in on that play as well too there. I think if you're able to run the football successfully, in games, and you do put Ben Roethlisberger on, either in pistol or in under center more, I think it opens up some situations for you to do some traditional play action that way. And I think maybe a time or two more we could see Eric Ebron in the seam there. As far as Eric Ebron and those drops, I think it's like taxes, man. I think you just got to get. I think there's a certain amount of them that you just have to live with, and that's the way it is there. So that's my assessment on Eric Ebron heading into 2021, and I got a good notion that 2021 might be his final year in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said, Dave. I think everyone has the same opinion of Ebron in terms of his strengths, weaknesses, and use in this offense. I think last year was actually a pretty good year for him. I mean, 50 catches, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. The drops were bad, but Tiger's not going to change his stripes. You knew you were going to get those drops. And, I mean, actually, like, based off his career, I don't think they were like that much worse than previous NFL seasons for him. So again,
they looked as advertised.
Yeah, and again, I mean, they were frustrating and they were costly at times for sure, but not surprising with Eric Ebron. That's probably not going to change this season. But it'll be interesting to see if they use him more in the slot this year. If Juju's going to play on the outside a little bit more, if Friarmuth's going to play some more inline stuff for run blocking. So just where they line him up, I'll be interested to see how Matt Canada uses him, but I think in terms of production and role and overall fit in this offense, it'll be relatively unchanged.
Right.
So that leads you to Pat Friarmuth, who's the second-round pick out of Penn State, and just be interesting, Dave, because he is, I think, more advanced and more quote-unquote NFL ready than a lot of other college tight ends because he's played with his hand down and as a wide tight end inline kind of guy. But we know how difficult of a jump it is for any college tight end to make the jump to the NFL as a rookie, and that he is a junior, played 4 games last year. I've kind of said that song and dance several times. So, I mean, assuming they don't sign anyone else, he's going to play 400, 500 snaps this season in all likelihood. So it'll be just interesting to see his performance and to see how steep that learning curve is for him.
Yeah, look, you spend a second-round pick on him. They're going to get him on the field, and the question is how much and what kind of situations on top of it. And I've said, I think right from the get-go, I thought 400 to 500 snaps. I envision, right out of the chute too. And I think you're going to see more 2 tight end groupings this year. And I wouldn't be so shocked to see in some certain 11 personnel situations with the 1 tight end on the field if he's not the one tight end, because I especially if you're going to put him attached to the line of scrimmage as a blocker, I think I'd much rather have him out there than I would Eric Ebron. But I think obviously it's going to be interesting to see how often they go heavy this year. And heavy by 2 tight ends on the field at the time, and especially right out of the chute. If they're going to want to run the football a little bit more, and not only do so out of 11 personnel, you're obviously going to have the 2 tight ends on the field there. So I think 400 to 500 snaps. I don't think you want to put too much on his plate, moving them around, as far as detaching them and reading certain coverages. You can do that with him, though, but I think most of his snaps, you're going to see him within, either attached to the line of scrimmage or in motion like an H-back, or just barely detached from the line.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'll be interesting, that first litmus test. It might be a little bit harder for us to gauge this year, but the everyone's favorite, the sleds. How does he look on the sleds that first day? It's usually a big issue for a lot of these young tight ends. They get better as camp goes along, but just kind of that first day, first time hitting the sled, see how he looks, and Tomlin's reaction, and tight ends coach Alfredo Roberts' reaction, and just to kind of get that initial feel for Friarmuth. But I think we'll make a lot of tough, combative catches in camp and preseason. His hands, to me, are his best trait. He makes some really tough grabs over the middle of the field. He's not going to separate that much and physically run away from anybody, but he's going to make that tough, ugly, Heath-like kind of grab. That's going to be his game.
He certainly had strong hands at Penn State, and especially inside the red zone, right? So, this is a guy that you get inside the 20-yard line. Ben likes them guys that got length and got wingspans on them there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns as a rookie, and obviously all of them coming within 20 yards or less there, because that's a big guy. If you get the right matchup with him, with that size and those kind of hands, why wouldn't you throw it to him?
Right. Yeah, we'll see how he looks in 7 shots in camp. They start the ball or start practice every day at the 2-yard line, and I'm sure he'll get some opportunities there for some slants and fades and one-on-one opportunities.
Right.
So those are your locks, Ebron and Pat Friarmuth, and then there is the rest. It's that number 3 tight end spot's open with Kevin Rader, Zach Gentry, Dax Raymond, and I guess the field, any potential outside free agents who are not currently on the roster. I think Rader is the favorite right now. The season began today for the reasons we've mentioned before, Dave, and you've written about in your 90 for 30 series. He's probably the best blocker, best special teamer, but his roster spot is not guaranteed. His hands are poor. He drops a ton of passes. And Raymond, I think, can make some plays in the receiving game. And Zach Gentry might be boom or bust for him. Last chance for Gentry, but, we barely got to see him last season. So, I don't want to make too many, final conclusions on who he is or who he is not.
Yeah, when you think of third tight end, you think of somebody that can bulldoze somebody, or somebody that can run up and down the field and make an impact on a special teams player too. And when I think that, Zach Gentry's not the first one that comes to my mind, unfortunately.
Going out on a limb there.
Yeah. He really has a lot to prove, because look, and bless his damn heart too. On top of it, he played 20 snaps last year and like 50 snaps as a rookie, and all 70 did not look good. And you just kind of wish maybe if he had more time before he suffered that knee injury last season, might we have seen something to kind of hang our hat on? And just the way things were going, I have to say no. But that's why I think Radar, just because of the fact that we've seen him play on special teams and do okay. We've seen him block, and even when he was on the practice squad last year, he was probably the best blocking tight end the Steelers had on the roster, or probably not know probably about it when it comes to that. So I would, we'll see, what are they going to do? Are they going to add a Jesse James still? Obviously the odds, you would think that maybe they would have already done that by now. It don't mean that they can't still. So, I don't know. How much more time should we spend on a number 3 tight end?
Yeah, well, we'll be watching for it, because it'll definitely be a battle. But yeah, Raymond, he was brought into camp last year, or was that the year? No, it was last year, and they got hurt with an ankle injury.
Right out of shoot. Yeah, and then got waived injured, and then got injury settlement, and out the door he went. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be a battle, not the most interesting battle and not the headline of camp, but a battle nonetheless. But that probably wraps up the tight end position. Moving on now to wide receivers. You have, your established guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, James Washington. Still growth and development there for really all those guys, and I'm interested to see how Canada uses Juju. I'm sure it'll be a lot of short stuff, a lot of horizontal game to kind of get him in space and use his size and his strength, but obviously really want and need to see him get more vertical like he was prior to last season to improve that yards per catch, because it cannot be 8.5 yards the way it was in 2020. So be interested to see how much he plays on the outside, and just how much vertical they get him, how often they get him vertical in the slot. That's kind of the big thing there with Juju.
You go back and look a couple of years ago, let's see, not 2019, been 2000. What season did Ben hurt his elbow? That was 2019, right?
19. Yep.
All right, 2018 was when he played more on the outside. And look, he made some key catches down the field that way, outside the hash mark, outside the numbers, and really a few even inside the numbers as well too. Is there going to be a seismic shift though? We've talked about this previously when Juju's talked about, I'd like to play outside more, and look, just let Ray Mcleod play in the slot, let Mikey try it. I think you can scheme that certain ways, and look, I talked about since early in the offseason there, especially when it looked like maybe Juju wasn't going to, there was a chance that Juju might not be back. Chase Claypool has played some in the slot. To me, he would be your next really legitimate snap in, snap out kind of option to have an increased slot role. That said, I mean, you can move them around, and I think it's good to do that because it keeps kind of defenses on their toes. And you never know what kind of matchup you wind up with sometimes by having a wrong personnel group across from you on the field there. So yeah, I do expect Juju to play more on the outside. I don't think it's going to be a seismic shift, however. But even if he does play in the slot, you can still run those slot fades and exchange routes and things where you get him down the field. Even now the slot there, the switch routes and those kind of things. He cannot have an average depth of target once again of like 5 point whatever yards. That just cannot happen. Bless his heart for getting 3 yards after the catch last year, else his receiving stats would have really stunk to high heaven there. So that's the biggest thing with him is just make sure you add in more attempts for him on the over routes, switch routes. Occasionally put him outside and let him try to beat one-on-one coverage. Those kind of things there. That's it with him. As far as Claypool goes, we got to see him separate down the field, Alex, more often. Quite honestly, plain and simple. Now, I do think there's an opportunity more in that intermediate passing game with him on more structured kind of digs with him, say 12 to 15 category. And I also think there's the chance of you might be able to see more of kind of those underneath short digs with him as well, too. He ran a lot of those at Notre Dame. Now, unfortunately, that's where most of his drops came in, was those shorter underneath crossing routes. But I mean, he got a lot of tasty matchups in there, and when he did catch it, some good run after catch opportunities within that. So I would think when you look at Claypool, one of the biggest things I want to see for him is when more contested catches on the outside, show that he can stack on the outside a little bit more often, and then maybe some more intermediate digs and some underneath digs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, do you think he has the ability to stack and really improve there? Because he really hasn't shown it at any point in his career yet. Of course, he's still young, so he can still improve. But do you think the talent is there and there's just one thing that's missing? Or do you think like that's just not going to be his game?
I mean, you know where I stand on this, right? I mean, what's the one thing that I harped? I mean,
right. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I'd like to see him at least try, to get in a couple opportunities to see if something like, he had happened in that game against Denver early on in the season there, where, you were able to identify, what was happening with the safeties there, and you knew that was going to be a one-on-one matchup. You just... and obviously, depending on who's across from you, you're going to have better chances in some situations there. But, I mean, I'd like to see him home run it a couple of times more without having to have some of those contested catches to get it done. And on top of it, he had probably 3 or 4 contested catches that he probably should have had last year that he didn't come down with. Now, I still think he's a good receiver. I think he can win with him. I think he fits in perfect. I'm not down on the guy. I just really think that he's exactly what I described to people that he was going to be coming out of Notre Dame, and why I had him as a 3rd-round pick versus a 2nd-round pick, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I hear you, and I'm with you on everything that you've said so far. I know we talk so much about the gadget guy for this offense. Could it be McLeod? Could it be McFarland? And to some extent, I think you'll see those guys get involved in that kind of Canada motion-heavy type of offense. But I think one guy who really could be maybe the focal point to some degree is Chase Claypool, because this guy's like 6'4", 230, explosive, and Canada loves those jet plays and those kind of things. And the Steelers did use Claypool on that a little bit last year, especially some 3rd and short type of stuff. And I think you could really see an increase in that and let him get horizontal and get up to speed and just run over some DBs or smaller linebackers. The game's gone so small that he can really, I think, win in space on some of those kind of end-around jet plays. Things like that. So I think how Canada uses that skill set, I think, will be something that'll be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, once again, like I said, if you get him in, I think he needs to take up some of that abuse that Juju had in that slot sometimes as well too, where you can run kind of that the pivots or the or even just those straight kind of underneath mesh route, kind of routes there, that type of thing. Because once again, I think if you go back and look at his complete contextualization of what he did at Notre Dame, he did do a lot of that kind of that underneath dig type stuff, that 5, 7, or 12 type digs, and he made a lot of big plays that way, especially down in the red zone, because he's so hard to stick with. And if you have a linebacker or something like that with him, across the middle there. So I'd like to see him used more in the middle of the field, as opposed to outside the numbers, which has been a lot, so far during, we saw during the rookie day. And yeah, you could still do the handoffs with him and stuff like that on top of it there. But I just think you're right. They can do more with him than they did with him as a rookie overall.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, to some degree, the chess piece of this offense, because he's going to play them. He's going to play more than Ray. He's the better player than McLeod, better player than McFarland. So you're going to play your guys and then utilize those skill sets as being kind of that chess piece who can, be the motion heavy type of guy in this offense, I think.
Right. And I mean, look, you can still run the wide receiver screens to them,
Sure.
The smokes and, tunnel screens and all like that to them, if you want. But I think you're going to see his targets, or I would like to see his targets more diversified, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Deontay Johnson, big year 3 for him. Just clean up the drops. He cleans up the drops. I mean, he's good to go. And I don't think inherently his hands are bad. He makes some really difficult catches. His body control, I think, is really good. It's just some of that lack of focus because he's so anxious to start looking downfield on some of those slants. And I mean, most of his drops last year came on short stuff, crossers and slants and things like that. They weren't deep downfield. And that, to me, tells me that he was just focused on, taking his eyes off the football. We saw that on tape, and he was looking at where the defender was and where he can make his first move. So clean that stuff up a little bit, and I think he's going to be good to go.
We did see that alligator arm against the Ravens off that slot fade, but hopefully
he had that guy coming over towards him. I think he kind of felt that safety coming at him.
His arms got real short, real quick there. I'd like to see the opportunity too to kind of stretch him vertically more. I think because we've seen him win. We've seen him win long since, you go back to the rookie season with him and Mason Rudolph, couple over the top there, right?
I think some of that's dictated by coverage.
Sure.
Cornerback, because the cornerback on that backside X is going to dictate your route piece on his alignment.
Sure. Yeah, and look, even that long touchdown against the 49ers, that was the guy that was originally the corner, I think, on that side went out injured, and the backup, I think, came in there and they picked it out, got the one-on-one situation. What I'm saying is I'd like to see more instances like that. If you see the tasty matchup there, you go deep. I think he does have the ability to get to stack on the outside more. And I mean, look at that play against the Colts too, right?
He can for sure. I mean, an ex receiver has to run the entire route,
right?
And Deontay's capable of doing that.
And then look, just more of you'd like to see his catch radius, I think. And it's probably not. I mean, usually it is what it is. I just would like to see him. I'll put it to you this way: I'd like to see him make more of the tougher catches.
I still think he makes a lot of tough catches. I think he's got a highlight reel full of them.
Yeah, I think he could have made more though. Bad ball catcher is what I mean.
And you get targeted 140 times. I mean, you're going to have some missed opportunity just because you're getting thrown at constantly. Yeah. But to me, he cleans up the drops, and the drops go from how many did he have last year? 13? I know numbers vary.
Yeah,
slightly,
15 to 18, depending on what you want to.
He cuts that in half because he's still going to drop some because his hands, he has those moments and he's getting targeted 120 plus times, probably much more than that. So he's going to drop some, but cut that number in half and have the exact same season. Otherwise, I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, he's good about making people miss. He's good about getting separation off the line. You look at some of he's working out with the route guide and looking at some of the things he's doing and how he's being taught to kind of varied up some things too with his head nods and all like that. I mean, he should really be an even more refined route runner showing up this time. If he catches the ball and if he's used properly in this offense, I mean, he's going to have X receivers generally in the Steelers offense have the most targets, right?
Right. Yeah. Very natural and nuanced separator. And I think you just see more improvements from that, getting in corners, blind spots, and having a really good understanding of that. But the best separator on this team by far.
Maybe use his body a little bit more to lean into some defenders.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just slight nuances like that. But
sure.
He's obviously capable of, and I don't know, obviously I think it's a bad thing the more the Steelers have to throw in 2021. But I think he's got the ability to catch 100 passes for 1,200, 1,300 yards, what have you. I'm just not sure he's going to hit those numbers because, I think the goal is to not have to throw that much and to spread the football around.
Right, yeah. So we'll see, but his numbers I think still will be pretty strong. James Washington, year 4 for him, final year of his rookie contract. I don't know if we're going to see really anything different in his game or usage in his offense. It'll be primarily that Z clear-out receiver rotate in. Obviously, he's not going to start the season with Claypool now being the guy, but still definitely a role for him to rotate in and keep guys fresh.
I think more than anything, he's a guy that, and I think I wrote him up this morning, I think he's a guy that has to maximize his opportunities. A little bit higher catch percentage. I think he had like 4 drops or 5 drops last season. Just a guy that you're a guy that you're not going to get a lot of targets in the game, so you got to keep your head in the game kind of situation there. And when you do get a chance to make a play, you have to make it. I mean, you could, barring injuries to anybody in front of him, it's looking like at best maybe a 40 catch season for him, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. He caught 30 last year for 392 and 5 touchdowns. So he did maximize 5 touchdowns on 30 catches is strong. But he did have also, I think, a career high drops in that category. So yeah, probably going to be similar production to last year, I'm guessing, barring injury.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a guy that you want to see. I mean, the footwork and the way he gets off the line, yeah, you might move around and take a snap or two at the X, but it's not what he is. He's not really a slot guy either. He is generally that Z type receiver there. So unless somebody gets hurt or he swaps out for a guy like Claypool or whoever, and he's the Z, or they go to 4 or 5 wide, once again, I think he's got to maximize his opportunities because I envision around maximum, I don't know, 45 to 50 targets on the good side for him if there's no injuries or whatnot.
And another guy who's probably in his last year as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, unless they were able to re-sign him for next to nothing, which, even Marcus Wheaton found a buyer, right?
Right.
So
I mean, it would have to be where Juju is gone and they want to shift Claypool inside more, and that's going to give Washington more snaps at the Z. That's probably the only path he comes back.
Right.
So, yeah. Ray Mcleod, again, a guy who's the gadget guy to some degree. I know you're going to talk about his average depth of target here in a moment, Dave. I know that's already coming, and that's a fair point. And I don't know if that's going to change too terribly much, maybe a little bit. But to me, he's a guy that can wear a lot of hats and is also your starting kick and punt returner and had an overall pretty good year in that role last season. Kind of faded a bit as a kick returner, but still I thought did well. And so that'll be his primary role for this offense and this special teams team.
Yeah, you're right about the average depth. I mean, that unfortunately, that's who he is. That's who, you go back and look at his snaps before he got to Pittsburgh. He's just, you're going to have to devise ways, and I think that devise ways includes a lot of out routes. Okay? Yeah. That's the way that I think that you try to get the ball to him more than 0.5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Yes, there should be a high amount of jets and all, either the ball going to him and not going to him, because he becomes, if every time you put him in the game and you run a jet and it's just it's a shovel pass to him, well, people are going to sit on that. So you've got to find ways to get him some snaps in the game where it looks like one thing but it's not. You know what I'm saying? Sure. And that goes back to the old thing that we used to talk about with Chris Rainey and Dre Archer and those kind of things there. When he comes on the field, the red light should not go off, and that's we put that on Matt Canada to help kind of doctor that up some. So, yeah, do I want to see him in the slot a lot? No, but should he play in the slot some? Yes, I think. And you're just going to have to find a way, I think, to move him around and occasionally try to match him up where you get him in some space. I don't, maybe a tunnel screen or something like that occasionally there. Something where maybe a blocker out front where maybe he can break one tackle and go the distance or something along those lines there. So it's just not who he is to catch the football down the field at the NFL level. So I think you got to come up with ways maybe out of the slot to run, I don't know, 7-yard outs or something along those lines there. I mean, he makes Ryan Switzer look like Randy Moss.
Come on, have a heart.
I know, and I just the way he's been used so far, you know.
No, right.
You see where I'm going because I think didn't Ryan Switzer had like a 2-point something average depth of target or something along those lines.
Switzer has the lowest yards per catch of any NFL receiver in history with 50+ receptions.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to see the amount of snaps that some people think that he might see based on what Juju said earlier in the season or earlier in the offseason. But on the flip side, I think there needs to be situations that you do get him on the field just because even if the ball doesn't go to him, then it sets up opportunities when the ball will go to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you have to kind of use that red light alert to your advantage where he could be the window dressing guy with a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of jet potential stuff. You'll fake it to him one play, give it to him the next, and then fake it and boot the next play. I mean, you have to kind of really use that to your advantage where he can be just the window dressing guy where he could get the ball and there's a lot of energy pre-snap with him, but you don't know what's going to happen pre-snap. And so I think that's going to be Canada's mission with him is to have that balance of good constraint plays and use them one play and give the same look another play later in the game, but have a different result with it. That'll be, I think, the challenge.
Right. In fact, I'm fine with every play that he comes on the field. He lines up in the same spot. You know what I'm saying? Because you want to make it look as much the same as possible from play to play. Now, here's the thing: when he's on the field, who comes off?
Right. That's why I think he's not going to play as much as some people think, or maybe it's what Juju hopes or wants to happen, because that means that one of those guys is coming off the field.
I mean, I think you're doing good if you got him 100 snaps during the regular season, to be honest, right?
What did he play last year? His snap.
What did he play?
I mean, it's hard to put a number to it. That sounds reasonable. I'm just it'll ebb and flow. I'm sure a little bit based on game plan, game circumstance. Things like that.
He played 165 snaps last year, if you can believe it, on offense.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think around there again is probably going to be his number. I mean, I just think we'll see a lot of window dressing. I'm going to call him – he's going to be like what's the right science term? I'm going to look really dumb here. Kind of the solar system guy. He's going to be just orbiting the offense, just running back and forth on a lot of pre-snap motion, I think, and – I think Canada's going to have to get creative with how he uses them and then occasionally with how he doesn't use them.
Is he a lock?
I wouldn't call him a lock. He's not in pen the way the other guys are, but I'd be surprised. He's very much inside looking out because of that value. And then also if he's not on the team, who's your starting kick and punt returner, Deontay might have to do it. There's risk there. So, and plus, I hope he makes it so he can be the first consecutive kick returner for the Steelers since Rod Woodson in like 92 and 93.
Wow.
Been a long time coming. I get that stat ready to go as soon as he kind of hits that mark. So it'll be good to have that continuity there.
I mean, top to bottom, it's not a bad receiving crew whatsoever, right? And once again, we talked about the continuity now that Roethlisberger should have with those guys. And I mean, if there's any one single bright spot when you look at the offense, it's, hey, they're probably going to have the same 5 back that they had last year. And obviously Matt Canada was with the team last year. I mean, everybody knows everybody, and there is some inherent value within that. And look, I mean, those top 4 are, all different kind of guys, but I mean, they're all talented in the right, and they have pedigree on top of it, right? So, I mean, you obviously the passing game is going to be predicated obviously on the running game being successful. But man, if they are able to run the football successfully early in games, there should be plays out there to be made by this receiving core, and thus you cannot have those drops in a lot of those key situations, there, because trying to drive the field 11, 12 play drives, just you begging, you're asking for stalls or penalties or something at some point for that to happen there. So you got to have more big plays, I think, by these guys. They all, we talked about James Washington, maximize those targets, and they really have to do that this year, I think, in this offense for it to be successful. But once again, there is inherent value, I think, with having the same top four, really the same top five back with Roethlisberger again, and with Matt Canada having already spent a year being part of that offense.
This unit is a strength of the offense, and they need to play like it.
Yeah, good point.
Point blank.
Yeah,
so,
that in the story, that's how you would describe it, I think.
Yep. All right, Dave, I'll lump the rest of the guys here between the futures guys and the undrafted players. The future contract receivers are Cody White, who was with the team last year on the practice squad, Tyler Simmons, and Matthew Sexton. Simmons and Sexton signed after their pro days this year, and so White's a big body, not going to separate too much. His chances seem pretty low. I think Simmons and Sexton are interesting. Simmons is kind of a running back type of body who had some of those jet plays and some things that probably fit well with Canada's offense. And Sexton is a pretty small guy, but really fast and a strong special teamer who I think Simmons and Sexton could be sleepers who might have some pretty impressive training camps.
Yeah, Sexton is because of his ability. You want to talk about a smaller guy that was able to make plays more than 5 yards down the field. You go back and look at some of his college tape. He was able to do that. And I think he doesn't he able to have some return ability from Eastern Michigan a little bit.
I'm not sure. He was a good special team. He had a great punt block to win a game. He had something crazy in one of those games. I don't know if he did return work. Let me check his stats here.
If there was one person that could threaten Ray, maybe it's him. Potentially Simmons. He just doesn't have enough. It's all out routes with him, I think. Out routes and curls.
Yeah, but he can be used in that jet, handoff sweep kind of game. And I'm not saying that's enough to make it, but I think it's an interesting wrinkle in Canada's offense.
I did a full contextualization on Simmons after he was signed, because what else were we going to do that time?
That feels like maybe in hindsight a bit of a wasted effort, but I'm interested. What are the results?
Yeah, I didn't see it with him.
Yeah, okay.
I saw it more with Sexton than I did with Simmons, to be quite honest with you. So I like Sexton's chances a lot more than I do Simmons. Cody White, I don't think I've watched a whole heck of a lot on him. I obviously I watched a ton of Isaiah McCoy at Kent State, and just how he doesn't look like he's 4'6". He's sure able to stack guys, at least at the MAC level, for whatever that's worth. Anthony Johnson's a guy that has stuck around, and you kind of wonder, what would have happened had he been able to stay healthy and play last year during the preseason. He's always been kind of that intriguing, big-bodied, wide receiver. Now, I think there's a potential maybe he could stick on the practice squad. Rico Bussey just seems like an also ran where it comes from him. So I think guys that potentially have the best chance at sticking around on the practice squad would be Anthony Johnson, Isaiah McCoy, Matthew Sexton. That's the list.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I'll go in with a clean slate because we haven't gotten eyes on a lot of these guys,
right.
So we don't know a ton about them. Sexton, by the way, did do some kick return work early in his career, 21 kick returns, but only 16.8 yards per return. So not a lot of production there, but has some experience. He'll probably be in the kick return line and things like that in camp. With Johnson, yeah, I mean, again, I don't know a lot about him. Just haven't gotten to watch him. But he's 26.
Other than his Buffalo tape, right?
Right, other than college tape, but NFL. I mean, he's 26, and I don't think he's ever caught an NFL pass, right? So, I mean, it's kind of do or die for a guy like him at 26 years old.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he really would have to make, and plus anybody on, got to be some special teams ability there to hang around past past training camp on top of it as well too. But I have circled Johnson, McCoy, and Sexton as the guys I think had the best chance of hanging around on the practice squad
right
afterwards.
Yeah, because for the 53, they probably will just keep 5 unless someone just has an amazing summer. You have your 5, the guys we just mentioned, Juju, Claypool, Johnson, Washington, and McLeod, and the rest of them are probably fighting for practice squad.
Yeah, I want to see McCoy try to go deep a couple of times and make a couple plays that way. I really do, because that was his MO. That and a few contested catches at Kent State there. So I want to see if he's able to look like he plays faster at the NFL level than his time speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure Haskins is going to throw a couple up to him, so he'll have his chance for sure. All right, Dave. That is the group. That is your receivers and your tight ends. Anything else there to add about either of those position groups?
No, I mean I'm just excited to start getting reports, from you on them all.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a good group overall, top to bottom in terms of the receivers. Tight ends have some intrigue, a lot of battles, a lot of guys that you want to get to learn and have to prove themselves. So happy with that overall. And by the way, should mention the official report date for the Steelers. Their first public practice isn't until the 28th, but they're going to report on the 21st, and their first practice will be on the 22nd. So by the time you hear from us next, they'll be practicing.
Absolutely, and we should have a Mike Tomlin press conference right when they report, right? So we'll learn if there's any active PUP guys, and we'll hear how the second we can tell you how the press conference is going to go right now. The second year players need to make the jump, conditioning, all that kind of stuff there. But I don't know, it's always something fun to look forward to for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about, or do you want to get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show?
Yeah, let's get to some emails here. Bryce is in our email box. Can't believe Camp is here. I'm looking forward to all the great upcoming content. I have a thought and a question. He said, like the Ike Taylor interview. What he had to say about Devin Bush's tweeting, young guy, blah, blah, in so many words. Bryce says he's not concerned about Devin Bush. He says wake him up when there's something more to talk about when it comes to him. He's got a couple of questions here. Outside of the offensive line, what are your top 3 position concerns on the team? He says his in order: corner, inside linebacker, and then safety. So what are your, outside of offensive line, what are your top 3 position concerns on the team?
Yeah, I would just say corner and some of the sub-package stuff in the secondary. Just there are a lot of unknowns there in terms of who's your right corner going to be, a nickel and dime, and slot corner, or dime defender, etc., backup safety, things like that. So, I mean, obviously, as a linebacker isn't as much of a concern after the Ingram signing. So it really, to me, is just going to be defined by the play of that O-line and those young guys in the secondary to step up.
Yeah, interested to see how that shakes out next to Devin Bush. I think we hit on earlier in the show, though, man. Now they got the outside linebacker in there in Melvin Ingram. Sure would like to see them add a versatile safety and one that can play center field. I think if they do that, I mean they really seem to be high on Pierre and Sutton right now. So I think they are okay with the bed that they've made right now at cornerback. I really can't see them adding to that group, to be quite honest with you. And I really can't see them adding to the inside linebacker room at this point. So you have to think that they're pretty happy with the beds that they've made there. So I'm not convinced that they're happy with the safety bed. So my safety would be at the top of my list where my concern is right now, and really just depth. And obviously, you want Bush to come back and play. Obviously concerns about that. But I mean, he's made it this far, and all the reports have been seemingly good. That as long as he comes back and is healthy, hopefully he'll pick up where he left off in Week 6 last year.
Yeah, we'll see what the level of participation is day one. I think he'll avoid active pup, but we'll see if he's full speed ahead or if they kind of slow play things a little bit and see just how his overall game looks and how he seems to move around.
All right, David Rickards writes in, good evening, gentlemen. With the signing of Melvin Ingram, I'm certain this may be covered already. In the event that it isn't, do you foresee any other free agent signings above the veteran minimum? Given the estimated new cap number, I assume Dave's estimate of the deal will be discussed in length. It has been. What possible signings might still possibly be on your wish list under the vet minimum? I think, David, I think we kind of maybe addressed that, and the whole Malik Hooker some sort of safety thing. I think Alex and I are in agreement that that's most likely. Maybe it's Malik Hooker, maybe it's not, but I could really foresee safety being the next position if they do, right, Alex?
I think if they're going to add anywhere, it's going to be safety. I really can't see a lot of other places they add to right now, at least at the moment, until you go through camp in the preseason.
He says, I bet Dave would say Jesse James, original 53. And for Alex, I predict Malik Hooker. I mean, I'm almost about sold all the Jesse James fatheads and memorabilia at this point. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I mean, it hasn't happened yet, right? And I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing it if it was for the minimum. I would still lean more at this point. I would probably lean more to Malik Hooker on the probability scale than I would a Jesse James. Now that would have been obviously reversed several months ago there. So, I mean, I've almost sold all the Jesse James hope, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it if it happens, but I'm not counting on it at this point.
He says, if time allows, what are your thoughts on the signing of relatively high dollar Steeler high dollar free agent signing of agent talent with injury concerns? He says, I'm optimistic, but that may be the inner fanboy in me. Look, I mean, there's obviously concerns, with a guy like Ingram, and I think that's probably a prime reason why this is a huge trend buster for Kevin Colbert. But sometimes the beggars can't be choosy, and I look at it this way. Once again, I said this a couple times during the show. If the first time he goes over the railroad tracks and two of the hubcaps come off, man, you just throw your hands up and say, well, you take the cake over to the trash can and say you tried.
That's a way to phrase it. There's risk there. I mean, the health concerns, and don't know exactly what you're going to get. But I don't know what else you would have done there to address the position better than how they have. And if it doesn't work out, as you said, they're low cost, low risk moves. So it would suck if they don't work out for whatever reason, health otherwise. But they're not. You don't have big money tied up in them. So if it doesn't work out, you can cut bait pretty easily.
Yeah, now if there is an injury with a guy like Ingram, misses several games, blah, 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 then it's all going to come back to, well, you see, that's why Dave built that list at over 30, that kind of thing. So, but I mean, with that said, I mean, he was the fit, I think, for someone that you need, that we talked about earlier in the show there. He was the one. I just never envisioned they would do it over 30, and that's why kind of Melvin Ingram was really never on my short list because of that. Barring injury, I could definitely see them having gone that way if somebody would have went down or something like that, But I don't know. It'd be interesting to watch play out for sure now. But at least they addressed position. That's what we've been hollering for since, early on in the off, or since the draft, really, Yeah,
well, since the moment Dupree signed with the Titans, I mean, it became an obvious need, and it's finally addressed.
Brett now writes in, what might have been. He says, hey, David, Alex, I have not written in a while. I have a question about the offseason moves. I think it's pretty obvious that the team was not planning to cut the Castro. That's the way I feel. My question is to you is, what move would they have done if they would have known and cut the Castro at the beginning of the offseason? Obviously, it would have been one of the following, but which one do you think they would have done differently? He says, A, keep Steven Nelson. B, re-sign either Filer or Villanueva. C, re-sign Hilton to soften the blow of cutting Nelson. I don't think you could have kept both. D, sign a different free agent altogether. Who, in quotations, who do you think that would have been? Thanks for entertaining the hypothetical. I appreciate you. Man, I mean, this is one of those space-time, what would, basically the root of the question is, what what move would they have done if they would have known and cut DeCastro at the beginning of the offseason? Well, are we to assume they would have drafted a guard, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different ways to go with that.
Sure. I mean, my first thought was they would have kept Steven Nelson, or I guess maybe been able to re-sign Mike Hilton and then bump Sutton outside the right corner and still cut Nelson. But that, it's obviously impossible to answer. But to answer it, I would say they would have kept Steven Nelson.
It's so hard to answer these type questions because you don't know how this leads to that. I'll tell you what way I would have liked to have seen it maybe gone had they freed up the Castro money right at the start of the offseason. It would have been to re-sign Mike Hilton. I think. Now, if you would have told me it would have cost me, let me ask you this: if I told you, all right, here's what's going to happen at the start of the offseason. They're going to cut DeCastro. You're going to get that money. They're also going to you then have a choice to either cut Nelson, and in doing so, I guarantee you get to keep Hilton. That's another hypothetical, I guess, for you.
Right. That's probably what it comes down to. Would you rather have had Nelson or Hilton? Hilton you would have had longer. Nelson could have been done after this season. So there's that to consider as well. I don't know. I mean, I'm really bad at these hypotheticals, so I don't really have a good answer for you.
I mean, there's so many you go off. If this happens, then it's not as easy as he lays out here because there's 6 other things that come in your head. Okay, well, they don't have DeCastro. What are you going to do at guard?
Right. And do they replace DeCastro with someone other than Trey Turner?
Right.
I mean, it's a butterfly effect to it that we could to go on forever about.
Right. So sorry about that, bro, man. We gave it the old college try, Brett, as best we could there. There was a few other let's see, Richard Jameson. I always enjoy listening to the podcast. Appreciate not only the fact-based and avoids hot takes and fanboy comments, but also it addresses issues such as coaching and contracts. In your Friday podcast, you said the Steelers did not need excellent quarterback play from Ben Roethlisberger in order to win in 2021. He goes on to say, why then should the Steelers devote cap space to the position as though he were an excellent quarterback? Would not the Steelers have been able to get better players on the field if they had reallocated that cap space to other positions? I see where he's going here. He's basically saying, well, Dave, you saying they don't need excellent quarterback play out of Roethlisberger in order to win in 2021. So why not just let Mason Rudolph run it or whatnot? Just because here's my thoughts on it. I think they still need Roethlisberger. It's just I don't think they need Pro Bowl All-Pro Ben Roethlisberger is kind of what I'm getting at here. I think they still need a guy that's been there and done that like Roethlisberger. I just don't think that he has to play lights out. I think you still need the mind and the experience of him in order to get you in and out of right plays, in order to do certain things. My main point was throughout all this, I personally think too much onus and analysis being put on Ben being a top quarterback in the AFC North or being a top 10 quarterback overall. I think if other things go correctly, an average Ben Roethlisberger can get done what needs to be done on offense to get this team, maybe into the playoffs and beyond.
I understood your point. I mean, you're saying that it didn't have to be MVP caliber Ben, but it needs to be better than Mason Rudolph level play.
Yeah, I still think Ben Roethlisberger, and I think you still would have to pay, $15 million, $14 million in order to get that kind of player there. It wasn't a shot in any way at Ben Roethlisberger. I just don't think that I just think too much analysis is being put on Ben Roethlisberger needs to be this great or X great, and I think that's wrong. My concerns about Roethlisberger are third on the list behind running the ball effectively, successfully, and the defense playing well. If you have those two things, then I think an average Roethlisberger can can get you to where you need to go, if that makes sense. It
No.
wasn't that just anybody can play quarterback.
Right. No, I understood. I understood the point you were making there.
Zach Andres writes in, David Knox, I remember hearing last year about Dobbs being another set of eyes for Ben, that to trust, not saying that Haskins can't do that as well, but it seems like more of a strength of the rocket scientist. How much do you think being Ben's extra set of eyes matters when it comes to the third quarterback spot? Probably not as much as any of us maybe thinks. If they think for half a second that Haskins can be a better number 3 quarterback than Joshua Dobbs, not only in 2021 but beyond, then it ain't gonna matter what set of eyes Ben Roethlisberger might want over there on the sideline.
Yeah, I'm with you, especially considering that this kind of job and decision and battle has potentially some implications on the future. It's not like, Ben's going to be the guy for 10 more years and number 3 is never going to really ever have a chance. That number 3 could be the number 2, potentially battle for the number 1 spot next season. So maybe in a tiebreaker, I suppose, but push comes to shove, the best man on the field, best man for the current and the future will win that job.
Man, there was one other that I wanted to get.
There was a long one on Friday show we couldn't get to. Did you get to that one, Dave?
Was that
somebody who?
Yeah, Schuschman. I think Roddy Schuschman loved the discussion about Ben Roethlisberger's past results from last year. As the discussion moved along, I thought it brought to mind that maybe a deeper data dive is needed. What was the game situation, such as Steelers winning big, close game, Steelers behind. Anyway, 2-minute situation, no huddle, previous pass dropped. In other words, he's coming up with all these game situations when it comes to Roethlisberger's past results from last year. He says maybe this would provide even more context to Ben's completion percentage, accuracy. He says, I think 7 played pretty damn well last year, given O.C. Fietner, wide receiver drops, offensive line shortcomings, run game. That's a lot of he played well except for, He says, P.S. I also firmly believe defense gets a stop after the punt versus Cleveland. 7 would have won the game as he had them on the ropes, and Browns were more than willing to brownie that game up to us. I don't know what, if we do all these other things and contextualize all these other things, winning big, close game, behind big, down 1 to 3 points, 2-minute situations, no huddle, previous pass. Then we have to do them obviously for all the other quarterbacks, and then see where it changes the rankings and yada yada. He says, I think 7 played pretty damn well last year, given Fietner wide receiver drops. I mean, that's a lot of played well given blah 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 blah. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think Ben played better than what a lot of people, especially those in the national media, believe, and I'm higher on him than many in the national media are this year. To the point about the contextualization, I mean, I'm sure we could do that and learn 1 or 2 more things, but man, we are, what are we now? 2 days away,
right.
1 day away from this team reporting to camp. Like, I'm focused on what's going to happen this year under new OC as opposed to rehashing everything that happened last season.
Look, for the last time, if you think that I'm anti-Ben Roethlisberger, I'm not. I think the right decision was made to bring Roethlisberger back, but I also am not, naive enough to think that, Ben's going, just because of Matt Canada, we're going to see 5,000-yard Ben, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, lights out. I think Ben's success in 2021 depends a lot on the running game, the offensive line, and how the defense plays. I think all those things will allow Ben to do what Ben can now do best, if that makes sense. I still think it's the right call, but I don't think Ben is just all of a sudden, Ben's going to become this now that Matt Canada's the OC and Najee Harris is in the backfield. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. I mean, Ben's still to me the straw that stirs the drink, and as he goes, so does the team. But yeah, the line is to me is that big X factor for sure, and how they go will really dictate Ben's protection in the running lanes and the efficiency and balance of this offense. So sure, I get that. I mean, most quarterbacks are going to struggle with the set of circumstances the Steelers offense was dealing with last season.
Right, and I don't want to quantify it. I think he played well, except for blah, 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 because, I mean, unless those things would have been, I think he was hampered by not having a successful running game last year. Yes, absolutely. I think he was indeed hampered by a lot of those drops. Yes. Play calling, I mean, they got in a lot of situations where Ben was calling the plays anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I think, Isaac begot this, begot, you know what I'm saying? You start stacking those things on top of each other,
Right. But again, I mean, I think we both agree, let's stop focusing on last year because this year is right in the windshield.
Absolutely. And speaking of right in the windshield, so will Friday's show will be here before we know it. We'll have plenty to talk about. I'm sure Mike Tomlin will have his press conference. Well, I mean, we're going to have a lot to talk about on Friday. So within that, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, we'll come back, I guess, for Friday, and then probably the week after start going back to 3-a-days. That'll be starting real soon.
Yeah, then the nightly training camp reports too. So we're going to be we're going to be some busy individuals here. So in the meantime, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button for $25 for one calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. Appreciate all the emails we get. Appreciate all the traffic. I hope you're reading SteelersDepot.com on a daily basis and all too. And just appreciate all the love and support. Man, we are excited to bring training camp to you. The coverage of that this year. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.